Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Germany once again, and we're going to continue on with this little mini-series of German beer reviews that I've been filming for you over the last few videos. Now, for this one, we are going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a couple of times before. These guys are a very well-respected brewery, not just in their local area or even in their home state, but all across Germany and further afield. A very recognisable name if you know your German beers, and they do some really good quality stuff. I think this is the fourth beer that I'm trying from these guys actually. But the one that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I very much enjoy. It's a style that I've heard these guys can do very well, and it's also one of their smaller produced beers actually. So yeah, to get a bottle of this one was pretty cool actually. I was glad that I came across this one. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Bavaria in the south of Germany. We're going to go to the south of Munich to a little place called Tegernseer, and I think those of you who know your beers will know where we're going now, but we are going to return to the wonderful Brauerei Tegernsee, or as they go with their full name, Herzoglich Bayerisches Brauhaus Tegernsee. So for this review then, we are going to have a look at the Tegernseer Pils. It comes in at 5% ABV, and from the name I think you guys can guess what style this one is. But yeah, in terms of the bottle with this one, compared to what you find in Germany generally with this style, and from Brauerei Tegernsee specifically, it's a bit unusual to see that they've chosen to release this one in a 330ml bottle rather than the half litre. But this is one that I picked up at Beers of Europe, who always have a very good selection of German and Belgian beers, and when I saw they had this, I thought, you know, we have to have a taste of this and see what it's all about, because the last beers I tried from this brewery, the Helles, the Dunkel, and also the Kirinus Doppelbock, they are pretty damn good actually, and I would recommend anyone that is interested in German beer try some of the stuff from Brauerei Tegernsee. These guys know what they're doing. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it's all about. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brauerei Tegernsee before, and we will hopefully add some more to that list at some point in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the German playlist along with a number of other things, and that is being added to quite a little bit at the moment. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I will tell you about Brauhaus Tegernsee, or Brauerei Tegernsee. I'm never sure exactly how to refer to this brewery. But the Herzogliches Bräustüberl Tegernseer, also in English the Ducal Brewery of Tegernseer, is from a small town called Tegernseer, obviously, in Miesbach County in Bavaria, to the south of Munich and fairly close to the Austrian border. But the Tegernseer brewery apparently traces its roots back to a brewery that was founded in 1050 by the Benedictine monastery in the town, which had been founded back in 746. But the brewery company in its current form traces its roots back to 1675, when Abbot Bernd Wenzel moved the monastic brewing rights from Holzkirchen to Tegernseer, and the brewery was known for a period of time as Tegernseer Klosterbrauerei. So basically, yeah, the Tegernseer monastic brewery, or monastery brewery in English. But apparently Duke Maximilian I, who was a lawyer in Ingolstadt, had a record of all the Bavarian breweries from 1604, and there was actually no mention of Tegernseer, so this suggests that the old brewery had ceased operations, and this was the reason for the brewing rights moving. So in 1817, after Germany went through secularization, the brewery and monastery was purchased from Karl Joseph von Drechsel by the King of Bavaria, Maximilian I Joseph. But at this point, it was renamed the Königlich Bayerisches Brauhaus Tegernsee, the Royal Brown Brewhouse of Tegernseer, and later it became known as Herzogliches Bräustüberl Tegernsee, the Ducal Brewery of Tegernseer, if I've pronounced these things correctly. I do apologise for bad German pronunciations in this video. But since this time, the brewery has been with the Wittelsbach family, and it's currently run by Duchess Maria Anna, the daughter of Prince Max, Duke of Bavaria. But today, the brewery produces around 130,000 hectolitres of beer per year, and they have a restaurant in one of the wings of the former monastery, and this is run by Peter Hubert. So the bottling plant for the brewery is in Gmünd, and like I said to you, this is a brewery who distribute their beers all across Germany, and they export quite a little bit as well. Probably their largest produced beer will be the Helles, so that's the one you're most likely to come across actually. But yeah, I think that's everything I can really tell you about Brauerei Tegernseer. I think that's a fairly comprehensive history, to be honest with you. But if you do want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So just to let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up, you can see it does go together really quite nicely. It's very classically German, of course, and we've seen this symbol on the Tegernseer beers before. The blue and white checks, of course, are the state colours, if we can call it that, of Bavaria. I'm not sure if this actually is the Bavarian state crest that's on this one, or if it's the crest of the old monastery or Tegernseer itself. I'm not 100% sure, but you can see on the bottle cap there, the Herzogliches Brauerei Tegernsee, the Hobe, as they would say, or Habe, I think you would say in German alphabet. But yeah, nice little top label on this one. As I said earlier, this one is a 330 milliliter bottle, and you can see here it says on the side, Gebraut nach dem Reinheitsgebot. You can see that on the little gold thing on the side there. I'm not sure how well that is going to show up on the camera. But yeah, I think I've had my fridge a little bit cold because there is a wee bit of sedimentation going on in this beer, but we'll pour it out and see how it comes. As I say, a 5% Pilsner beer, this one. It should be very, very nice. So remember, the Pilsner as a style, of course, originates in the Czech city of Pilsen, which at the time of development in 1842 was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, lived in by both ethnic Czechs and ethnic Germans. And the beer style itself was actually developed by a Bavarian brewer who moved over there. That was the beer that became Pilsner Urquell. And yeah, it was he wasn't a very well liked man actually, and so he was kicked out of the town. And then it was a Czech brewer, I think, who took over the brewing of what is now Pilsner Urquell. But remember, Pilsners are lager beers, which means they use low temperature fermentation, bottom fermenting yeast, usually between 8 to 12 degrees, in comparison to ales, which use top fermenting yeast and ferment it between 15 and 18 degrees Celsius. That's a technical difference there. The German name of this city, of course, was Pilsner, whereas the Czech name is Pilsen. So yeah, that gives you an idea of the history of the Pilsner as a style. For me, generally Czech Pilsners tend to be a little bit more kind of bready and yeasty and almost creamy in a sense. The German ones tend to be a little bit drier and more crisp. But you can see that this beer is poured pretty much exactly as you would expect of the style. So when it came out, you can see that it had maybe about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, perfect white head. That's faded away to be a very thin foamy layer now, and you've just got that nice ring around the edge of the glass there, but there's a very thin foamy layer, wispy layer, sitting on top of that. And in terms of the colour, again, it is pretty much what you would expect from the style. A lovely kind of pale golden straw type colour. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts that you put in, will affect the colour too, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the Pilsner style actually. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up toward the surface of the beer as well. But you can see it's got a nice little bit of a natural, unfiltered haze to it too, which I think is great. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect appearance-wise from a Pilsner, nothing particularly surprising about this one, to be honest with you. So yeah, I don't think we need to say more about the appearance. We can move on and have a little look at the aroma of this one and see what it's all about. Oh yeah, that's pretty nice actually. And it's, I will say straight away, it kind of has everything that you would expect from the style. There's nothing like madly unusual about about the aroma of this particular beer. But yeah, it does smell pretty nice. It gives you a bit of everything you would want. You know, there's a little bit of breadiness in there. There's some really nice, there's a little bit of breadiness in there. There's some really nice kind of, how would you say? Yeah, there's a little bit of a really nice kind of hoppy bitterness to this one that comes out in the aroma. It's got a little bit of crispness, a little touch of sweetness, and just that little bit of fruitiness too. I think the way that this beer goes together is really quite nice, in fact, so gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I really do like how this one pieces together. So let's try and break the aroma of this beer down a little bit more and just describe it for you that little bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, absolutely, you can smell a little touch of that fresh white bready bread crust in there, almost as if it's straight out of the bakery. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust in there, a little touch of woodiness to this one, and you also get just that little bit of kind of Jacob's cream cracker type note on top of that too. It's not too dry a pils, it really is more of a kind of bready affair, this one, I have to say. Yeah, the aroma of this beer I think really is quite interesting. I mean, I have to say, big thumbs up to Tegernseer for this. It's quite a wet smelling Pilsner as well, I would say, generally speaking. But yeah, above the crackery layer, you've got a good little bit of above the cracker, you have a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character for me, just a very slight and sweet wholemeal brown bready character. Then above that, you've got a little bit more of a fresh, you've got a little bit of a more kind of fresh white bready character coming out of this one. So yeah, the way the aroma in this beer goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, on top of the wholemeal brown bread, fresh white bread, and then above that you can smell a little bit of the kind of you can get a little bit of that kind of crisp, dry Pilsner malt just coming out of the beer in the back of the nose. But like I say, this is not the most dry of Pilsner beers, in fact. There is a good little bit of sweetness to the malt base in this one too. Like in the dead centre, you can smell a little bit of like a concentrated biscuit, like an oily concentrated biscuity character. There's a wee bit of McVitie's like a more crisp McVitie's digestive biscuity character too. And yeah, I think the way the beer goes together in that particular regard is really very, very nice. Yeah, so sweet concentrated biscuity notes, McVitie's digestive biscuity character, and then yeah, the way that this one goes together in that particular sense is I think very, very nice. Yeah, love it. Really think this is really, really nice. Yeah, it's awesome. So for me, I think that covers the malty side of the beer, to be honest with you. I think that's everything we need to say about that part of the aroma. On the hoppy side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect. I'd be very curious to know what hop they're using in this one is actually. It's quite obviously German noble hops, because you've got that lovely bright floral aromaticity coming out of it. I'm guessing, when I think about where this brewery would be, or where this brewery is situated, it's probably going to be Hallertau, but the Tecknang region isn't too far away either. But yeah, this beer shows these typical German noble hop notes. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a slightly higher alpha acid hop that's been used in this one, because the floral notes just seem that little bit more punchy. It could be like, you know, a little bit of Pearl or Hercules, one of those slightly stronger alpha acid German hops that's been used in this. But certainly on that green component side of things, you get a little touch of there's a little bit of smooth earthiness in there, a wee bit of herbal character as well, but not too much. And then at the front of the nose, you're getting more floral aromaticity coming out of it. So yeah, a little bit more floral aromaticity. And then at the front of the nose, you get a lovely kind of quite wet, freshly cut grass type character coming out of the beer. So I think that is really very, very nice. For me, yeah, gets a big thumbs up. Actually, I think this is a really, really nicely done beer. So yeah, I think it's good. So yeah, in terms of the the green component, I don't think there's too much else to say. On the fruity side of things, it's kind of what you'd expect to the style too. You've got a lovely little bit of yeah, there's a lovely little bit of a kind of there's a mix of things going on with this one. You've got a little bit of sultana, of course, you know, dry white green grapey character. Beyond that, you've got a little bit of a kind of oily pear type note, kind of fresh oily pear, maybe teeny little hint of dry or apricot underneath. And then, other than that, you have a really nice kind of yeah, other than that, you've got a really nice sort of gooseberry and kind of lime, you know, sort of lemon limey type character coming out of this beer. So yeah, I do, as I say, really like how this one goes together. It gets a thumbs up from me in that particular regard. So yeah, awesome stuff. Really nice stuff actually, aroma-wise, from Brauerei Tegernsee. But knowing these guys, I wouldn't expect anything less, to be honest. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the flavour of this one then. As I always say, though, take a bit of time to just ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But yeah, this one is the Tegernseer Pils, coming in at 5% ABV from Herzoglich, how do we say, oh, I forgot the second, yes, that's it, Herzoglich Bayerisches Brauhaus Tegernsee, if we have it correct. Probably not, but let's get stuck into this one. The Tegernseer Pils, it should be pretty nice. Slange, skål, cheers, prost. So, yeah, that's pretty nice. Very smooth and quite wet Pilsner, actually. I like it. So, for me, this is really good. This is a beer, it takes you a little bit of time. I'm actually finding this with quite a few of the Pilsners that I've been trying in recent times. They do take a little bit of time just to show you their hoppy characteristics and show you that little bit of more dry crispness that you would expect from the Pilsner style, but they're still damn good beers. So yeah, you're getting this one. It's very, very smooth in the beginning, but then it just becomes a little bit more bitter. It kind of dries up a little bit, and then you start to get a wee touch of sweetness out of this one. But yeah, the way it goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of the brain's not working tonight, guys. Tired as always. But yeah, let's try and just break this beer down then and describe it a wee bit more in depth for you. We'll start on the middle third of the palate, as we always do. So the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely fresh white bready bread crust there just forming the backbone, and it has a little bit of graininess and dryness to it the further into the aftertaste that you go. But yeah, further forward, on that, further forward on that middle third of your palate, you get a wee touch of a kind of woody character in there. And then above the, above that kind of bread crusty character, you get a little bit of the Jacob's cream cracker that I could pick up in the aroma. Now, I will say this beer actually does. It's one of these ones where the flavour that you get out of it really is reflected by the aroma, if that makes sense. This beer is really what you'd expect when you sit and smell the thing. But yeah, this is pretty damn good actually. I will say that. So yeah, for me, the as I say, for me, the above the kind of Jacob's cream cracker layer, you do have a very slight layer of like a wholemeal brown bready character, and it's quite a sweet wholemeal brown bready note, as I said. But then, yeah, above that, you're getting the kind of fluffier white bready character coming out of the beer, and I think that is really very nice. So yeah, for me, that fluffy bready character goes together really quite well, and then it does kind of sweeten up a little bit. You do get a little bit more sweetness out of the bready character with this one, the further into the aftertaste that you go. But then above all of that, you have the dry Pilsner malt, and the Pilsner malt, it kind of is most dry, it is kind of most dry at the back of that middle third of your palate, but as you move further forward, you have a really nice kind of, you can feel it sort of mellows out a little bit, but you still get that wee bit of dryness, and it mixes in quite well with the bready character that this beer has. Yeah, I like that with this one, so yeah. So, yeah, above the kind of Pilsner malty type qualities, you start to get the little bit of sweetness out of this beer. So like in the dead centre of that, middle third of your palate, you get a really nice kind of, you get a really nice sort of more concentrated, biscuity type character coming out of the beer, and that lingers there into the aftertaste. But as you go a little bit further out from that, you start to get a bit more, as I say, you start to get that little bit more kind of, you get a little bit more of that kind of drier McVitie's digestive, biscuity sort of thing coming out of the beer too, which as I say, I think is really nice. So for me, the biscuity character it does, as I say, for that little bit of concentrated biscuit in the middle of your palate, the more oily sweet sort of thing, which is covering the booze, and then yeah, as you go out toward the edges of that middle third of your palate, it just shows you the more crisp biscuit notes. But I think, to be honest, that's everything we can really say about the middle third of your palate in this beer. Let's move on to the back third of your palate, and as I've often said, the back third of your palate will show very similar flavours, but they'll just come out in different intensities. So yeah, on the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you do get a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in there, and it's got a wee bit of brown bread on the bottom, very little bit of brown bread, white bread in the middle, then the drier Pilsner malt on top of that, and then yeah, on the back third of the palate you can feel the bread crusty character is there. It's a little bit kind of more dry and grainy than the other ones. Then you start to get a little bit more of you start to get a wee bit more of a kind of how would we say, you get a little bit of a kind of crackery note in there too, which is again drier. A little bit of the wholemeal brown bready character, which was a wee bit lighter and more airy. Then above that you've got the fluffier white bready layer, and then you can feel some of the Pilsner malty dryness just creeping over the top of that and sort of rounding off the beer. But yeah, the way that comes out too is, I think, very, very nice. Yeah, for me, above that you're starting to get some of the yeasty characteristics out of the beer, and the yeast for me is very much like it is very much kind of like a kind of dry, grainy, farmhousey bread sort of thing. So yeah, the way the beer goes together in that particular respect, I think is really quite nice. The yeasty character is like a more dense white bready character. It's a little bit kind of it's a little bit more crisp. It's a little bit more kind of crisp in a sense too. So you get that crackery, grainy, dense white bready character coming out of it, and then you also have that little bit of you also have that little bit of you also have that little bit of just like honeycomb flavour wrapped around. I always get honeycomb in the back third of the palate for some reason, but you can definitely feel that the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, let's move on to the green component. And I can feel this beer is getting more bitter the further into the flavour that you go, which is good, because that's what you want from a Pilsner. You do want that little bit of bitterness. In the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, you get a wee bit of herbal character, and then as you push right toward the kind of front corners of your palate, you get that nice, bright, and very slightly spicy, actually, floral aromaticity. And it's that very little hint of spice that makes me think that this beer is using a little bit of a slightly higher alpha acid hop, such as Pearl, or I don't think it's quite strong enough to be Hercules or something, but yeah, rather than just the regular Mittelfrüh Hallertauer 10-9. But yeah, it's nice anyway. And round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing coming out of this one. It's quite a wet grassy character, but it has a good wee little bit of zestiness to it as well, which I think is great. So yeah, the way this beer goes together in that regard is really quite nice. And yeah, I think that goes together. That goes together really quite well. So yeah, I think that covers the hoppy side of the beer. For me, I would say that front curry palate, and sorry, my brain's just going a little bit at this point. It's late night. But yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, we'll start looking at that front third of your palate. The border region between front and middle third of your palate, you have the same kind of thing. You get a little bit of bready build-up, a wee bit of brown bread in the base, white bread in the middle, and a wee touch of the dryness of the Pilsner malt on top. The base of that front third of your palate is kind of bread crusty, which I think is great. On top of that, you have a little bit of a you've got a little bit of a wholemeal brown bready sort of thing and a soft white bread, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, for me, the fruity side of this beer is the fruity side of this beer, I think, is kind of again what we expected from the aroma. If you go to the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little bit of that kind of almost oily sultana type note. There's a wee touch of citrus in there as well, but yeah, it's like these kind of dry white green grapey notes in there from sultanas. As you move further forward into the middle of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of a kind of dry apricot-y type note in this one, and then above that there's a very slight kind of oily pear, and as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you do get a little touch of a kind of you do get a little touch of a kind of lemony character just behind the very front tip of your tongue, but then it's also got just a wee bit of a kind of like fresh green apple or something like that sitting on top. So the fruity character, obviously in a Pilsner, it's not the most fruit forward style or whatever, or hop forward style in a sense, but it does give you that little bit of fruitiness that you would expect. Yeah, I like that about this one. I really think this is a very, very nicely done beer in that regard, and it's a good Pilsner. This one, it shows you more and more of its Pilsner characteristic the more that you drink of it. The bitterness and the dryness kind of build in this one. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour. So we can round off this review with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel then. So for me, in terms of the mouthfeel, this beer, it's definitely kind of light-bodied. Carbonation is quite crisp in this one. It's got a really nice kind of clean mouthfeel to it, this beer, but it does get drier and drier the further into the aftertaste that you go. In terms of the level of bitterness in this beer, I think we're talking a kind of standard 30 IBUs, and that is normal for this style. It could be slightly more than that. 35 would also be possible, and it has that wee bit of spiciness to it as well, which, like I said, makes me wonder if there's a slightly higher alpha acid hop in this one. But then above that, beyond that, sorry, you start to get a good little bit of I would say you start to get a little bit of a kind of dryness in the base of the malt base, if that makes sense. The middle part of it's really nice and smooth, and then you get a wee touch of sweetness sitting on top of it too, which I think is really good. So for me, the malty side of this beer is also good, and it gives you everything you'd expect of the Pilsner. The fruitiness is quite light in this one, which again is what you expect of the style. So yeah, I'd say this is a typical kind of... you can feel it has that slightly bigger dryness that you would expect of the German Pilsner. It's not quite as big and yeasty as some of the Czech ones will be. So yeah, very typical German Pilsner, this one. But I think it's a really nicely done beer, and I heard this one was good. It certainly hasn't disappointed. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. So yeah, this one was the Tegernseer Pils at 5% ABV from the Herzoglich Bayerisches Brauhaus Tegernsee. I'm not sure the full name of this one, but it's the Tegernseer Pils in any case. A really nice example of the style, and always cool to return to this brewery to try a few other beers. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brauerei Tegernseer as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point very, very soon. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, try some German beers, and I'll see you guys in the next review.